Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Nick Bendel with us. He's CEO at Hunter and Scribe. We're going to talk about writing, marketing, copywriting, and content today. Hopefully, talk about AI. Nick is a professional writer for property and finance industries. He writes for mortgage brokers, buyers agents, accountants, financial advisors, and more. Websites, blogs, social media posts, and so forth. Podpar.com is presenting to this podcast. If you want to start your pod or scale it, go to podpar.com. Nick, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and 100 Scribe.
Great to be here, Charles. Thanks for having me. Well, I used to be a professional journalist, and back in 2018, I started my own copywriting agency. And as you mentioned, we specialize in writing content for property and finance professionals.
AI replaced a bunch of content writers, a bunch of people that wrote normal content that didn't have a niche and a specialty. Now ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude can write articles better and faster if prompted the right way. What have been your response to AI, or how have you adapted to it?
Well, you made some interesting points, Charles. So I think AI is very impressive. And if the AI is prompted in the right way, and if the AI is able to mine relevant information from the past, it can produce very, very good content. Where the challenge comes is if you don't know how to prompt it in the right way, and if there isn't a sufficient trove of data from the past for the AI to mine, then it can't do as good a job. With my particular company, we have a very narrow niche, and much of the content we write is news content. So it hasn't affected our business. Another reason why it hasn't affected our business, Charles, is our clients are really, really time poor, and they don't have time to do all this prompting and back and forth and checking. That's part of the reason they dump the problem on us. However, I think for copywriting agencies who are doing stuff that can just really easily be replaced with a simple prompt, I think those sorts of businesses are being replaced.
Right. So nowadays you target a bunch of niches with a bunch of different offers. Which is the best one to you right now? Because there's mortgage, there's real estate, financial advisors. So who in that is buying the most from you? And what are they buying the most? Is it social media posts? Is it ebooks? Where's your most exciting product market fit there?
Well, our two biggest client groups are mortgage brokers and buyers agents. And the thing that they're buying most from us would be social media posts, email newsletters, and blogs. And the content that we're writing is generally not evergreen content, but it's newsworthy content. So stuff that has just happened. And it's harder for the AI to write about that because there's no trove of data for the AI to mine. A related issue, I'd say, Charles, is even though the news might come from a government press release, for example, or some sort of agency releasing some data, it does require some human skill to understand what the newsworthy angle from that is. You can have a massive data, but you need to understand the very specific narrow angle. And that's probably the number one thing that we're selling at the moment. Newsworthy content in the form of social media, email newsletters, and blogs, where we as the experts understand what the angle is.
Right. And which of your product is the most popular right now? Is it like ebooks? Is it blogs? Like, what are people buying the most from you now?
The top three in no particular order would be social media posts, blogs, and email newsletters.
And is it real estate agents that are buying the most? Is it financial advisors? Which of these clients are buying the most?
I would say it's mainly mortgage brokers and buyers agents, but then we're also working with accountants, financial advisors, real estate agents, credit repair agencies, and a few other types of businesses.
Right. And how are you getting these new clients? Is it SEO? Is it referrals? How does that work?
Yeah, there's a mixture of sources, Charles, because we don't want to have all our eggs in one marketing basket. We want to be across different marketing channels. So one thing we do well, we publish social media content every day, and that generates leads for us. We're also getting referrals, and we're very grateful to people who refer us. We do SEO, that also helps. We also do a lot of networking. That is beneficial. And then, even though this is very old school, we do cold calling, and that works as well.
Cold calling is interesting. I mean, I've owned a call center back then, 200 employees plus. Seems that in this day and age, though, it's less efficient. Have you tried cold email?
I haven't done cold email. I'm reluctant to do that because in Australia we have anti-spam laws, and that's not something you're allowed to do, from what I understand. Going back to the cold calling, it depends on the business and the scale and what you're trying to sell. With our particular business, our clients tend to be small business owners, and so you can easily get through to the decision maker. And if you are able to offer them something that's directly relevant to their interests, they're at least willing to listen.
Right. Well, the laws are similar to Canada, but like you can't cold call either, like the cold email, cold call, they're pretty much the same. Calls are just a bit more disruptive, but yeah, I agree that the laws are a bit tougher in Canada and Australia. Now, how much do your services retail for? Is it like one package and I can get all types of content, or is it per services? How does that work?
It tends to be bespoke because clients tend to clients have the opportunity to design their own product, and so the pricing is bespoke as well. But the clients we work with, a typical monthly order would be less than 1,000 Australian dollars, which is about 700 US dollars.
Per month, right? Per client.
Yes, exactly.
And on how much clients do you run normally?
I think we've got maybe 200 to 300 clients, but not all of them are ongoing clients. Some of them are ongoing, and some of them will come to us once a year for a one-off job.
And when you say us, you have a team behind you, like, or is it solo dolo stuff?
There's a team, so there's me, and I have 5 colleagues as well.
Right. And what are their roles? Do they produce content as well? Or are they on the customer service or sales?
My role is to do the sales and the marketing. Their role is to do writing. So they're professional writers, really good writers, and they just write all day.
Right. So at any given time, you're running, let's say, on 20 to 30 clients that are actively paying you 700 a month.
Yeah, but probably a bit more than that, but yes.
Interesting. So how will you grow from 30 to 60 this year?
Well, it's continuing on with those marketing activities I mentioned before. And I figured that if we're doing marketing every day and we're doing an array of marketing activities, I think that will allow us to just keep moving forward.
What are your top goals this year? Grow the agency, networking. What else do you have on the agenda?
Okay. Well, there are a few specific projects we're trying to do in the business. One of them, funnily enough, we've recently hired another agency to do cold calling for us. And that will allow us, assuming it goes well, to grow a lot faster. So managing that project is one of our goals. On a personal level, I have a project where I'm having lunch with 500 strangers, and I've met 370 people so far. So my goal for this year is to have lunch with another 80 strangers approximately.
So how much lunches are you on 500 so far?
I've done 370.
That's a lot. In how much time?
That's been 4.5 years.
Wow, that's a lot of lunches. What have been the challenges to get to there?
Well, COVID was a bit of a challenge because everyone was locked down, and so the lunches got put on pause for a while. Uh, the other challenge, Charles, is I'm trying to meet a really diverse cross section of people. So I'm quite selective in who I meet, and so it can be a challenge to try to find people who are different to the sort of people I've met before.
So I'm reading like on your website that you're a fussy eater. So getting there, getting to the restaurant, that's one because I talked last year to 1.5K CEOs. Um, I'm like virtual, very much type of kid. You do that physically. So getting there, choosing the restaurant right, making sure that the person doesn't cancel you, then the cost of going to the restaurant isn't it, don't, wouldn't you want to prefer doing that online?
Good question. So it is inefficient in one sense to have a one-on-one meeting where you've got to physically go to the location and do all those admin tasks you mentioned. However, having a one-on-one meeting in person, you really get to have an in-depth conversation, and the conversation often becomes very personal and intimate. And that's what I'm looking for. And I should point out that I didn't start these 500 lunches as a marketing or as a business activity. So I'm not looking to sell to any of these people. It was more of a personal development project for me to improve my social skills and strengthen my mindset and learn new things and build an amazing network. And to do that, you really have to meet in person.
Plus, you're an introvert, so how hard is it for you to get out of your comfort zone every time you meet someone new?
Well, I am definitely an introvert, Charles. Funnily enough, it's never been difficult. I My challenge in the past was groups of people, especially groups who I didn't know. If I would go to a party and I didn't know anyone, that was very, very uncomfortable for me. But one-on-one, I've always found that easier. And now meeting these people and having the lunches, it's just so familiar and routine for me now. Funnily enough, often the other person is very nervous because this is their first time doing it. But for me, it's something I'm very comfortable with.
You also wrote a book that you said could have been written in 1 week, and we don't know is the answer to the question why uh, why did you write the book? So it seems that there's a lot of confusion, but a lot of creativity and serendipity in that book. Tell us a bit more about the depth of Ricardo.
Ah, yes. The Debt of Ricardo is a fun project that I did with a friend, and we decided, Charles, that we would write the book together, and I would write one paragraph, I'd send the book to him, he'd write the next paragraph, send the book to me. So we took turns writing paragraphs, but the key thing was that we had an agreement that neither of us would discuss what the plot was about. So when we started the book, neither of us had any idea what the book was about. And as we were writing the book, neither of us had any idea what the book was about. It could have been written, it ended up taking us 7.5 years to write. It really could have been written, as you say, in a week or two. For some reason, we took time to email each other, even though much of what we were writing was nonsense. So in the end, we had a book that was a bit of a farce because there's no real clear plot, but there are so many plot twists that the book is bizarrely captivating.
You spent almost 3 years traveling in your car. What did you learn from that?
Yeah, I spent about 3 years traveling around Australia, and I slept in my car to save money. And it was definitely the best experience of my life. The things I learned were maybe very specific to Australia. I I'm born and raised in Sydney, which is the biggest city in Australia, and I had a view because I hadn't seen much of Australia that everywhere in Australia was like Sydney, but actually the opposite is the case. People outside Sydney, they have very different views and experiences and values. It was interesting to learn about that. And another misconception that some people in Australia have, including me when I was growing up, there's a view that we don't really have much history in Australia. But as I was traveling around and going to all these different places, I saw that actually there's an amazing amount of history, and I found that really interesting to learn.
Seems that you like taking these very long-term projects. What brought you to the tuition of that one? Why did you actually stop traveling?
Well, that's a very good question. I do plan at some point in my life to resume the traveling. So I would say I put it on pause. It's been a very long pause, almost 20 years now. But I was doing that when I was much younger, and I was trying to maybe deny reality for as long as possible. But eventually, you need to return to the real world and get a job and build a career, which I'm really enjoying doing. And at some point, I will leave the career behind and become a traveler again.
And at some point, were you about to give up meeting these 500 strangers for lunch too? Because that's quite a big goal.
It's a big goal, but that's part of what excites me about it. I love the feeling of making progress slowly, one person at a time to this goal. And as I said, I've now had 370 lunches, and as the tally keeps climbing, it feels more and more exciting. And I usually have 2 lunches a week, Charles. And when I meet these people, it's always the highlight of my week, because I never exactly know what their personality is going to be like, or what their backstory is going to be like, or how we're going to interact with each other. And it's a lot of fun. And the fact that it is such a big goal, that's part of what really excites me about it.
And what were your weirdest lunches or your most memorable ones?
Good question. So some of the most memorable, I can remember having lunch with a hostage negotiator. That was fascinating. I asked him a million questions, and to my surprise, he answered them all, and he had a lot of fascinating things to tell me. I can remember a lunch that went for more than 4.5 hours, because we just got on so well and had so much to talk about. In terms of a weird lunch, I can remember meeting someone at her company, and then she got called away by a client appointment, and then I ended up just having lunch with her colleagues instead of her. That was a little bit odd.
Were her colleagues like, so she was the boss and she just sent you some other folks to finish the lunch with you because she couldn't be there?
Well, she went away for a couple of minutes, and she didn't realize how long she was going to be away. And so those colleagues happened to be around, and what made it awkward was they had no idea who I was or why I was there. They sensed that I had to be someone important because I was friends with their boss. So they felt like they had to be nice to me, but you could tell they had no idea who I was and why they were having lunch with me.
Any awkward lunches with, I don't know, people that were, I don't know, dishonest or, like scammers or like people that are not who they say they are?
I haven't had any lunches with any dishonest people. The people I've met have been really nice. There have been a few lunches that have been a bit awkward because we struggled to have any sort of connection, and we struggled to find things to talk about. But that's been just a handful of lunches. With most of them, the conversation flows really well, and the challenge is not having too little to talk about, but actually having too much.
Anyone tried to sell you something the whole lunch?
No one has done that. Sometimes people try to sell a little bit, but no one has ever turned the lunch into a sales pitch.
Are you always choosing the same restaurant because you know that they're reliable? Like, where do these lunch happen?
Yeah, good question. Well, so I live in Sydney, which is a city of about 5 million people. And so the people I have lunch with, they can come from all different parts of the city. So once we've agreed to meet and once we've chosen a date, I then find out where the person lives so we can pick a mutually convenient location. Often it's in the middle of where I'm based and they're based, or maybe I tell them to pick a place right near their office. And as a result, Charles, I've had lunch in a few hundred different places.
Do you write down ideas from these lunches and do you convert these into content?
I do write posts about every one of my lunches and I publish them on LinkedIn, and they have been getting a fair amount of attention because people are just intrigued by the idea. And funnily enough, indirectly, I didn't realize this was going to happen, but indirectly, it has led to business because it's boosted my profile and made people feel like they already know me. There is some content that comes from it. As I mentioned before, I'm not trying to sell to these people, so I'm not trying to turn them into clients. Many of them could never be clients, but I am learning a lot from these people, and many of these people are successful business people. They're CEOs, they're business owners, and you can learn a lot from people like that about how to run a business, how to do better sales, how to be a better leader, how to strengthen your mindset. And I'm really benefiting in that way as well.
What's next for you in the next couple of years?
Well, I'm looking to significantly grow my business, and I'm looking to finish my 500 lunches. I have another 130 to go. And those are the two things that occupy most of my time and my bandwidth.
How do you speak with a mouthful of foods? Like, what's your strategy with that and not to get too much air in while eating your food? What's your strategy?
Well, I'm now a lot better at that than the people I have lunch with because I've had a lot more practice. So I I like to take small bites and I like to get them to do most of the talking.
Well, that's quite cruel. They will never finish their meal if they do most of the talking.
Well, they do. That does happen a lot. I finish my meal a lot sooner than them, and then they'll say something like, "Oh, I barely touched my meal." So that is a common occurrence.
Uh, well, thanks for coming on. It's interesting because yeah, like me, I don't know, like food and business, I've never really, yeah, what if like the conversation gets tense, and then I digest this food, or what if I get too excited and I don't eat and have too much air in me while I eat the food. But yeah, I understand like the connection when we eat is primordial. It's such a social thing to eat, and it's really memorable. Plus, it's a nice way to attract someone, right? Like food, it's like positive reinforcement. So, like the idea, and best of performance with that. You're almost there on the finish line. So, good job, Nick. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so a good way to find out about me is to look at my profile on LinkedIn, or they can go to my business website, which is hunterandscribe.com.